Hello and welcome to the Domestic Cricket Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, big stories, player movements, fixtures, results, classic matches, and of course interviews with domestic and international cricketers. So if you're a fan of the Sheffield Shield, One Day Cup, or a cricket fan in general, you'll love this podcast. I'm your co-host Caleb Bland, along with Sam Fitzgibbon. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Domestic Cricket Podcast. It's been a while. We've made a few fixture announcement videos, but we're finally back doing our weekly episodes. There's a lot to cover. The Marsh One Day Cup has begun, the greatest tournament in the world in my opinion. And then also the Sheffield Shield has restarted, and boy oh boy are we packed with stars. We've got the whole Australian Test lineup playing in the Sheffield Shield, other than David Warner and Will Pucovski, who have injuries. There's stars everywhere. The interest in the Sheffield Shield is at its peak, that it has been at its peak in probably the last decade. Obviously, for all the players we've had in it, all the games being broadcast really well on the Cricket Network, a game around on KO and Foxtel, which is fantastic. Public interest is at its peak. We've had a few interesting matches and a few big individual performances that we're going to run through as well. But before the Marsh Cup started, Ethan, who we're joined by today, my younger brother, there was heaps of drama trying to get the Victorian team into Sydney to start the One Day Cup and to play the Sheffield Shield game that they had scheduled to open the Shield restart as well. Obviously, Victoria had a COVID scare. They went into a 5-day lockdown. And there was some crisis meetings there 3 or 4 days before the first One Day Cup match, which was at North Sydney Oval between New South Wales and Victoria. A few crisis meetings between the New South Wales, Victorian and Australian governments, as well as the cricket officials, trying to get an exemption for the Victorian team to travel to New South Wales to play the game. And they ended up doing it, which was fantastic. Didn't think they would. I thought we were going to have another delayed start, but thankfully they got that exemption and they were able to play the One Day Cup match and the Sheffield Shield match. But as a result of that COVID scare, the second match, Victoria-New South Wales, which was scheduled to play at the MCG on Thursday, has been moved to Bankstown Oval in Sydney's western suburbs, which is fantastic for us Sydney siders. We get to see another star-studded lineup Sheffield Shield match, but unfortunately for the Victorian fans, they'll be disappointed they can't get to the MCG to watch that game. But another major talking point, I know Ethan, you weren't able to get to the match, but it was big news for you as well, having Ticket Tech get on board for the Marsh One Day Cup match between New South Wales and Victoria. Obviously with COVID, some grounds like North Sydney Oval, you have to get ticketed. And it was fantastic to have tickets being sold via Ticket Tech, Australia's largest ticket organisation. And yeah, so you could go along. It was free entry still, but you had to have your ticket, and you got special seating in a specific stand or hill. So I actually went along to that Marsh One Day Cup match. It was a fantastic atmosphere. Star-studded lineups, obviously. And another big talking point was Pat Cummins, Ethan, mad New South Wales Blues supporter. Yeah. Pat Cummins got the opportunity to captain New South Wales throughout the Marsh One Day Cup tournament. How do you think he went on Monday in the opening match against Victoria, and how do you think overall he's going to go this tournament?
He did pretty good on Monday, and for the rest of the tournament, I think he'll just stay the same. Really good player.
It helps when he's such a quality player. Obviously, if you're struggling for a bit of form or you're not the best player in the side and you're captain, there's always a few talks about whether you deserve to be in that side whether you would be in that side, if you weren't captain. But Pat Cummins, look, I know you say your Virat Kohlis and your Steve Smith are the best players in the world, but I think that bowlers don't get the recognition they deserve. And I think Pat Cummins genuinely is a world number one player, because Pat Cummins can bat as well. He's a brilliant fielder, and I reckon he's going to be the greatest fast bowler of all time if he doesn't get injured again. To think he's only just reached 100 Test wickets or whatever it was, and he's 25 now, 24. He debuted at 18 and got 5 for against South Africa. And then, unfortunately, he had 5 years off the game, 4 or 5 years thereabouts. And you just wonder where he would be right now if he hadn't have got injured, recurring back injuries. He could be already up to 250 wickets, So
He played for Sydney Thunder as well back in the day.
he did, but yep.
My team as well, Sydney Thunder.
Yeah, he's that is a good point you make. With those injuries, he did get a lot of time back in the domestic setup, but obviously you want your best players playing internationally. So that was another big news, Pat Cummins being named captain of New South Wales in the One Day Cup tournament. So it kind of almost rules Steve Smith out of being the next captain. I think if they obviously want to test Pat Cummins out to see whether he's international cricket material for the national test side. I think if Steve Smith was going to be considered again, he would have been captain of a Sheffield Shield side. But Pete Neville is. So I think it's obvious that they're trying to get Pat Cummins, and if not, they're in a bit of trouble here. Who else could potentially fill the role of Australian Test captain when the great Tim Payne retires, which hopefully will be a little while longer because he's in the form of his career, averaged over 40 in the Test series against India, and he's been batting well for Tasmania as well on his return. So, for the first time this year, we're going to take a look around the grounds, and we're going to start off with the Marsh One Day Cup, which has restarted on Monday the 15th at North Sydney Oval. They got a good crowd in, probably about just under 500. New South Wales taking on Victoria there. New South Wales winning very comfortably. I was at the game. It was a fantastic atmosphere. It was a good game to watch, considering the scoreboard suggests it wasn't. It suggests it was a one-sided affair, which I think Victoria had. There was times in the game where Victoria were definitely on top. New South Wales opened the batting. They scored 9 for 318. Their top scorer was obviously Steve Smith, who made headlines around Australia, scoring 127 of just 124, smoking the ball all around the ground, 9 fours, 6 sixes. Plenty of them coming my way on the Doug Walters Hill there at North Sydney Oval. But that was after the openers both failed. Matthew Dukes got bowled second over, I believe, or thereabouts for 4. Daniel Hughes only made 1. Moses Henriquez could only make 12. Curtis Paterson had a good start with 23. And then Ollie Davies. Yeah, Ethan, you love Ollie Davies. He's been brilliant for the Thunder. And now he got his chance to debut for New South Wales. And to score 57 off 41, 3 sixes, 4 fours. His whole family was there. There was about 20 Davies floating around the hill there. One of them, his younger brother, I think, actually took a crowd catch on the hill. But he lit up North Sydney Oval, and it was fantastic to see. Sean Abbott made 31. He batted well. Pat Cummins made 49 off just 30 with 3 sixes and 4 fours. But I tell you what, he was lucky to get past 10 the way he was batting at the start. He just couldn't find the middle, but then he got a few. He got 2 good 4s and then the 3 big 6s, and that got him up there in the runs. And it was unlucky to not get 50 in the end. And then Benny Dwarsh's 4 not out, Liam Hatcher 2 not out, and the GOAT Nathan Lyon got a golden duck. And then Victoria were chasing 319 for victory. Sam Harper 7. Marcus Harris batted brilliantly at the start. They needed someone to step up, and he did 47 off 59, a solid start. Nick Madison got a duck, and then Peter Hanscom made a good start, 31. Matt Short, who I was having a great conversation with when he was on the boundary just in front of a hill. Great bloke, Matt Short. He batted exceptionally, 67 off 67, 4 sixes, 4 fours. While he was at the crease, Victoria looks like they was still a chance to win the game. Jake Fraser McGurk, the young 18-year-old, could only manage 3. Will Sutherland, 18. James Pattinson played the innings of his life in the One Day Cup, I reckon. 54, 36 balls, 3 sixes, 5 fours, striking at 150. He was brilliant. And there were stages there when he was in a partnership with Matt Short where you thought, you never know. If these two stay in for another 5-6 overs, they're a genuine chance. Xavier Crone made 16 not out, Zach Evans 1, and John Holland, the evergreen John Holland, could only manage 10 as they were bowled out for 259 with just under 4 overs remaining. The standout for the bowlers for New South Wales, Pat Cummins got 3 wickets, Benny Dorcius, Liam Hatcher, Sean Abbott all got 2 wickets each, and there was a run out there as well, which Patrick Cummins took. And I forgot to mention earlier, the Victorian, there was no real standout in the Victorian bowling performance. They all were very, not average, but they were all very consistent. They were all very good. Pattinson, Sutherland, Zach Evans, and John Holland all taking 2 wickets. Xavier Crone got smashed around the park, 94 off his 10 overs, but he got the wicket in the end of Nathan Lyon. And that was the opening match in Marsh Cup. It was exciting. They had a great commentary team. And yeah, it was a great start, especially for Steve Smith. He continued on from his one-day form in the Australian side and brought it to state level. Now, the second game was Monday the 22nd, live from Blundstone Arena in Hobart, Tasmania taking on Queensland. With a 5-round tournament, you really need to win all your games to cement your spot in the final, and if not, you can probably only afford to lose one. Tasmania batted first. They were bowled out for 237. However, they got off to a flying start. They were going 6 over off the first 10, 28 off 50 for Tim Payne. His first game since 2016 in the One Day Cup, and he started off with a dashing 4, first ball of the game. Caleb Jewell batted brilliantly. Unfortunately, he got out to Stanlake, who had an absolute field day down on that bouncy. It was unusually bouncy Hobart deck. 36 off 27 for Caleb Jewell. Jake Doran 1, McRae 10. Now, Jordan Silk was the only real standout batter, 77 off 88. Unfortunately, he was bowled in the end by Kuhneman. Bo Webster 15. Mitch Owen and Tom Andrews could only manage 1. But what kept Tasmania a chance of defending that total was Jackson Bird and Sam Rainbird's and Nathan Ellis's batting at the end, where Nathan Ellis got 21 off 41. There was a last wicket partnership between Jackson Bird and Sam Rainbird, which got them to a defendable total, and it was really good hitting from Jackson Bird, 27 off 25, and Sam Rainbird held up one end 8 off 11 as they fought their way into facing all but one ball in the innings before they were bowled out. The stand-up bowler was definitely Billy Stanlake, 4 for 24 off 10 overs, including a maiden. It was an unbelievable bowling performance from him, bowling genuine heat and a lot of bounce. Matt Kuhneman, the young fella, it was good to see him bowl well, 3 for 47 off 10. And Xavier Bartlett continued his form from Big Bash. Ethan, you would have seen a lot of Xavier Bartlett for the Heat. It was great to see him get a few wickets as well.
Yeah.
He got 2 for 35 off his 8.5 overs. And there was also a run-out of Tom Andrews from Marnus Labuschagne. Queensland then batted. Usman Khawaja, another great funder player. Although you're a big Blues supporter, you must like watching him make big scores like he did yesterday.
Yeah, it's great to see Khawaja in good form.
Yeah, he certainly is. Carried it on from the Shield game 2 days prior, scoring 93 off 106. Sam Hazlett opened with him as well, scoring 27. Marnus Labuschagne was caught on the boundary for 18. Renshaw 16. Joe Burns 36. He batted well. Jimmy Pearson 16 not out, guided them home along with Jack Woodham of 17. And Mark Steckerty's 5 not out. There was a late scare. Nathan Ellis picked up a few late wickets, which kept Tasmania in the hunt. But unfortunately for my Tassie Tigers, we just couldn't get it over the line there. Jackson Bird, Sam Rainbird and Bo Webster all picking up 1 wicket. Now, Bo Webster, what a revelation. He's an off-spinner, and now he's bowling medium pace and taking, I think, 7 wickets in the past 6 days. 6 in Shield and now 1 in the One Day Cup. Nathan Ellis bowled brilliantly, as he always does. 3 for 39 off his 10 overs. And now taking a look around the grounds, we'll go to the first match of the Sheffield Shield restart. New South Wales taking on Victoria at the SCG. And Geez, it was not a good scorecard read for the batsmen. Only one team, only one innings managed to get 200 over, and that was Victoria for exactly 200. It was a bowler's dream, that wicket. It was spinning a fair bit as well. Overcast conditions throughout the whole match, which is what made it such an exciting prospect for the bowlers in both sides. Now your Blues, take us through the scorecard for your Blues.
Dan Hughes making 24 runs, and Moses Henriquez making a great 67 runs.
Faced 170 balls, took his time, but he needed to. They were in a lot of trouble. Steve Smith got out controversially to Mitch Perry on debut, and he only managed 7 runs. Sean Abbott, and it was just really Sean Abbott who was the only one who made a start with 22. And the bowlers, John Hollands and Mitch Perry, 3 wickets each, Pattinson 2, and 1 to Will Sutherland. And Scott Boland as New South Wales in the first innings have rolled for 165. Not pretty reading. And then, Victoria made the pitch at the start look like a batter's dream. Nick Maddinson, I know you're a massive Blues fan, and you wouldn't have been too happy when Nick Maddinson moved to Victoria. But boy, oh boy, has he been in some form.
77 off 80. That's not
unbelievable. Not bad, is it? Unbelievable opening the batting against a lineup including Stark, Hazelwood, Copeland, and Lyon. It's unbelievable from Nick Maddinson. 77 of 80. Harris and Hanscom both got 24. Matt Short continued his form, got 30. But after that, New South Wales got on a roll and rolled through him and bowled him out for 200, which kept him well and truly in the game. They were none for 94, Victoria. How were you feeling when they were none for 94?
I was actually quite scared for my Blues.
Yeah. It could have been a disastrous defeat, but it kept them in it. Mitch Stark, he didn't do much for his confidence. None for 71 or 14 overs, going at over 5 and over. Yeah, it's not pretty reading for him. Trent Copeland 1 for 17 or 14. Unbelievable bowling. Sean Abbott 2 wickets. But what about the GOAT? You must have been happy.
6 wickets for the GOAT, Nathan Lyon.
And not only that, 21 runs off 16 overs for an off-spinner at SCG, which the pitches for the Sheffield Shield are usually really wide on the pitch square. So it was pretty much a 60-metre boundary towards members. That Nathan Lyon kept him in the game. He bowled brilliantly and picked up his 600th first-class wicket. That must have been a big moment for Blues fans like you, Ethan.
Yeah, it was.
New South Wales then batted and they could only manage 175. Sean Abbott. This is one of the great Sheffield Shield innings. 73 off 75, 6 sixes. The first 4 balls of a Scott Boland over went for 22 runs, 3 sixes and a 4. And you thought he was playing Big Bash. He is the only one that could make any real runs. Nathan Lyon, the night watchman, batting at 3, made 21. Smith got out for 13. Hughes 15. Mitch Stark and Copeland helped at the tail, 13 and 20 respectively.
Pattinson, Henriquez and Neville batted atrocious in that second innings.
They really need to hold up an end and just stay in there, but a duck to Patterson and Neville and only 3 for Moses really didn't help. They got into the tail early and Scott Boland picked up 4 wickets. He only went for 57, still over 3.5, but considering one of his overs went for 23 runs, it was a pretty good effort. James Pattinson, Mitch Perry and Sutherland all got 2 wickets each. Victoria needed 143 runs for victory, and they did it quite comfortably in the end. Nick Maddinson raced to 44 at the start. Marcus Harris 14, Hanscom only managed 4, Matt Short 17, Jake Fraser McGurk hadn't had much form in Sydney, but he guided them home 38 not out, and James Pattinson 16. Gotch only managed 2 as they cruised home on the third day, only 6 wickets down, so that was a massive upset for Victoria considering they're playing almost half the Australian Test side with most of the Blues side having represented Australia at Test level. It was fantastic performance by the Bush Rangers. I know he's looking pretty sad here reviewing this scorecard, but it was a great day out for Victoria. And on the same day, Tasmania took on Queensland in what was one of the great Shield matches in recent times. Tasmania were sent into bat on a very green Hobart deck, and they made 332 runs, which is fantastic. The big standouts was Caleb Jewell. Now, he's been in scintillating form in the Tasmanian first grade competition, scoring a century in both the T20 and one-day grand finals for the Tasmanian Premier League. He scored 140 of just 236, and everyone else made starts, bar Charlie Wakeham, who made 4, and Gabe Bell, who was 4 not out, batting at 11. Everybody else scored at least 14 runs, so it was great to see from the Tasmanian side, all pinching in. Brendan Doggett, a great Indigenous player for Queensland, picked up 4 wickets. Wildermuth Bartlett picked up 2, Nat Kuhneman picked up 1, and so did Steckity. Queensland then batted, and it was a great bowling performance from Tasmania. Bowled him out for 275. Joe Burns, with possibly the innings of the Sheffield Shield so far, 171 off just 217, striking at nearly 80, scored over 60% of Queensland's runs. 171 opening the batting. It was unbelievable. Marnus Labuschagne was given our LB for 49, and Xavier Bartlett batting at 9 made 25, and no one else made double digits. So it was a very one-sided affair for Queensland in their first innings, and Tasmania with a lead of over 55 really could have cemented their spot and got a lead of over 350. Unfortunately, they were bowled out for 252. Jordan Silk opening got 51, 55 to Jake Doran, and 38 to Jared Frog Freeman, the off-spinner. Everyone else made a few starts. Tim Payne got out for 9, and Jackson Bird got out for 3. In the bowling, Xavier Bartlett, in career best form, really announcing himself as a mainstay in this Queensland lineup, picked 4 wickets. Mark Steckity 3, 2 for Wildermuth, 1 for Brendan Doggett. And now Queensland were cruising along at periods. They were at one stage 2 for 190, but then Tasmania started picking up quick wickets and really put pressure back on Queensland. At one stage, Nathan Ellis was on a hat-trick. Unfortunately for me and the Tassie side, they couldn't get over the line, couldn't bowl them out. Marnus made 78. Usman Khawaja, your man even, what did he score? 115 of just 206. What was your opinion of that innings? Considering it's a 4th innings, it's generally hard to bat. How do you think he played himself?
Sometimes I ask the question, when he bats, why can't he bat like this in other games? Because in the Sheffield Shield, he bats really, really good. But other comps, he just doesn't really perform.
He's very in and out with his form, which is probably what's kept him out of that Australian side. But when he's good, he's really good. He made 115 not out, and that's what took Queensland over the line for a victory over Tasmania. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for our first episode back of the Domestic Cricket Podcast weekly episodes. I'm Caleb Bland, and I was joined by Ethan Bland, my younger brother, today. Ethan, thanks for being on the podcast again.
It's my pleasure.
And apologies for not doing any extra segments like we usually do. We will be returning to that very shortly, but with a lot of content to cover this week, it was hard to fit it in. So thanks for joining us. Keep updated on our social media channels. We've got plenty of stuff coming up. And thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the Domestic Cricket Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the Domestic Cricket Podcast and on Facebook. This has been another presentation by the Domestic Cricketers.